that very, very first stage of children's drawing, which is scribbling. Now, it's a kind of, sometimes it's controlled and sometimes it's quite uncontrolled. But it is one of the things that I always recommend everybody to do. I mean, people who want to learn to draw. It seems like a funny way to do it, but actually two things happen. One thing that happens is that your sheer physical inhibition against drawing is broken down. There's the actual movement, this movement in your arm, of making this kind of a business, gives you a release. See, most of the times when we, as Western people living now, use our hands for anything, we use them for quite small things. We use them to type or to write, you see, with a pen, and our whole hand is tight, and the muscles are usually tight in our arms, and we cramp ourselves so terribly. Now, this business just gets rid of cramping. And one of the things that you should do when you're doing this is always use a very cheap paper. As you're not making a work of art, you should get over that idea first. And if the paper is terribly cheap, you will have, at least I would have, a much freer feeling about wasting it. Because in a way you are wasting it. But you're also not wasting it. Now, you can do this in the sense of actually using it as a preparatory thing to making a drawing. And a lot of people recommend that very highly, exactly as they recommend looking at clouds, so that you can stand back from this and see what you see in it. And you can see maybe, I don't know what you see. You see all kinds of things in it. You might see, the movement of a person looking down, maybe his hands folded, maybe another person behind looking over the shoulder. I don't know what you see, but from such scrawlings you can sometimes get a new image in your mind. There's something which is fresh for you. Part of it springing from this very release of the physical act of scrawling. And children should do this. That is, they will do it if they're not prevented, really. It's not a matter of teaching them to do it. They'll simply do it unless you stop them. And it has great value for them. But it is only one stage of value of children's drawing. Another thing that you can learn, I think, from children's drawings is that there is such a thing as self-expression. As that the imprint of the personality is so strong, even at a very early age, that you can see one child's reaction and another child's reaction as really quite different things. Now, this is not news. Everybody knows that people are different, but it's easy also to forget it. It's easy to ignore it, and to expect all children to draw exactly the same way, or to expect that they inevitably will. Now, they won't, usually, if there is anything that can release them enough so that they can do what they want to do. Now, I'd like you to look just for a moment at this. It has a theme of houses and trees in the countryside. And feel the way that feels, and it was sort of friendly, I think, and maybe, I don't believe it's just the colors of it, they're sort of bright, cheerful colors, but something else. This grouping of the houses has a feeling of the overlap of people on each other, and something bringing people together. And almost exactly the opposite feeling is in such a thing as this, which was made by a slightly younger child, but is this child's seeing of the world, a vision of the world, is more isolated and separate, in a way more lonely. It may have a quality of perhaps of deeper personality, that is, of a deeper sense of the personal actuality of things, whereas the other has a sort of patterned prettiness to it. But they represent two ways of looking at the world. The child isn't doing this consciously, of course. It isn't deciding on it and then doing it consciously. It's an inevitable, natural unfolding. And one of the things which art, at any stage, in the art of children or in the art of grown people, one of the things which it does is clarify for the person making the thing the world itself. As they they begin to see that something exists beyond themselves. And I always feel that this is the greatest thing that art can do, whether it is in terms of a grown person or a child. I'm really practically fanatic on the subject. That looking at works of art or making works of art give you some knowledge of the world and some knowledge of something as actually outside of yourself. And you can see that in children, as if you watch their development in art, you can see how they become more and more conscious, starting with that scrawling, starting with the complete closed-inness, which they don't really recognize anything. They move more and more outward, and they begin to see people, for instance. And here you have two instances. I don't know how well you can see. This is a little crayon drawing, and this is a painting. But what has happened is that the child has gone beyond its own immediate self into a world, well, you can say it isn't very accurately seen, but this doesn't matter. It is seen as composed of other people, and it may be composed of a great many and a variety of things, you see, as in such a thing as that. Which is a very joyous sort of landscape, a very happy and springy and bouncy world that this child has in a way depicted and thereby created. Moving outside of its immediate self, moving into a recognition of the thing lying beyond, whether it is trees and mountains and sky and these marvelous cloud people galloping around up here, or the airplane, or whatever it may be. It lies beyond the child, and the child has thereby grown. Now, looking at works of art does this too, as it takes you in a way out of yourself. The intensity of children's drawings, this thing which, as I said to you last time, is of supreme importance. The feeling that what you're doing has great value, even if it's just for the moment and just for yourself. It has this kind of intensity of value. That is so attractive to us that it gives children's paintings a quality beyond their interest as surely developmental things, beyond this interest that we start out with of looking at the origins of art. Children can see sometimes so vividly that it enables us to see as well. And I think this is a nice example of that vividness of sight that a child may have, even in black and white. It's a scene on a beach of lots of little children and water and people swimming and all kinds of umbrellas and so on. But we see it and we can enjoy it exactly as you can enjoy the things that children say, that suddenly reveal something that you knew or you didn't know, but that have a kind of freshness and startling quality to them, and an intensity to them. Because the child is not affected in his drawing or in what it says. If you get them young enough, they can become affected. But ordinarily they are not affected or artificial. Now, because of this quality in children's art, a lot of people at the present time have tried to imitate the drawings and paintings and work of children. And I'll show you one which is using the same device that you saw in those children's things that I showed you. The device of lining up people with quite a complete indifference to their bodies, but a lining up of them so that you see them in a way harshly and separately and intensely. Now, this quality of abruptness and of absolute directness in children's art has so captivated contemporary artists that they very often even copy the style of children's work in the hope, and it really is a hope, that by that they can arrive at the same kind of authority that a child has, which is the authority of faith in the thing that it's doing. We can't help admiring it everywhere, I think, in life at the present time, the almost bumbling sincerity that is the opposite of all the suavity of professionalism. And the artist at the present time inevitably tries to arrive at some of that same intensity. He can't do it in the children's way, but he tries. Well, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.